Hi, I'm Steve Wilson. I'm here with Brian, and we're going to tell you about this unique new collection. And as you can see, it's a giant 3D fish, and we had a little struggle thinking of the name for this thing.
Yeah, we absolutely did.
And there's a seafood restaurant, ironically, right down the street from our office. It's called Captain Steve's. My name's Steve, so we said, let's call this Captain Steve's 3D fish. And that's as in-depth as we get sometimes. And this really had a unique origin. And we've been experimenting a lot with three-dimensional embroidery. And you saw it with, last year we did the birds.
Yep, majestic 3D birds.
And recently we did the flowers 1, 2, 3. And it's really like, well, how do you push that even further? And I think the key is that you have to say, what we're gonna do with this, instead of making a quilt or a pillow, is it needs to have a flat surface. So for Captain Steve's 3D fish, we created an art piece.
Absolutely. Hang on your walls. I mean, it looks great, and it's done a lot larger than what you're normally capable of doing in a single hooping.
Right, it's a really unique way. Now, when you look at the fish itself, you see a big, beautiful quilted background, and we'll talk about that next. But the fish itself is made of about 10 designs. So there's 10 different designs, and we'll show you how they all go together shortly. But all these individual fins are really attached to like one base design.
Right.
And the end result winds up being, like Brian said earlier, a much wider piece than your hoop is, because each hooping is really not that big.
Right.
So it's really manageable. Now, the first question you might see when seeing this is how will I be able to make this at home? So let's tell them how we actually mounted this piece.
You got it. We'll start from the beginning. So essentially, what we did is we made the quilted background after we completed the fish. We then took that quilted background, cut out a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and then we stapled it to it, and we made the plywood the size of the frame we actually got. We then put the actual quilted background that Captain Steve is pulling out right now, and we spray painted it in colors that would kind of go with an underwater theme. After that, we actually used some foam board to mount the fish up off of the frame to give it more of a 3D look.
Right, and you can see from this little fin I'm holding now that it's just like any other 3D embroidery you do, whether it's an ornament or a flower, you make these individually. And then it's just a piece of foam board. So it's really as simple as cutting the foam out with an X-Acto knife, and you mount it on the mounted quilt that's on wood.
Yep.
It looks a lot more complex than it actually is. But what's really unique is that none of these pieces are hard to make. If you start looking at these, you're making one of these at a time.
All freestanding embroidery.
So you follow the instructions, you're essentially stitching it on wash away stabilizer.
Yep.
You gather these pieces up, and then it comes time to put them together. So you wind up with, here's another example. This is a piece of stabilizer hoop by itself. You'll get a big guide stitch, and it'll show you where to put the fins. You simply tape them down, tax them in place, and you continue to add the other pieces. So assembling, a 3D fish of this size, I mean, it does take time. There's a lot of stitches in it. It is about 22 inches long when it's finished, but you don't have to stitch the whole thing at the same time. Right. And the collection has 4 different fish. I have the second one here. That's pretty amazing.
Came out awesome.
You see this one, and I'll pull the head off right now. But you see, it sounds strange, but it's it's a separate piece. We could put the hat on the frame there. So we have the tail piece, the top fin, all these little fins are made separately, and they all attach to this body piece.
All in the hoop.
All in the hoop, one at a time. There's no sewing involved in putting all this together. And then the head is separate, so it can actually be mounted a little bit higher than the other ones to give it a true 3D effect.
Yeah, because we didn't want it to have a sunken in look. We wanted it to actually look like the head was a part of the body and not dimensional. Exactly.
But now when you have all these other fins, you can add wire. We show you how to do that in the book.
Yep.
Or just pieces of foam to kind of prop them up. And then the end result is truly amazing. I'd say it sticks up about 2.5 inches in total from the quilted background when all the curves and mounts are done. Now, what about the frame? How do you make a frame like this? It's really simple. I've always thought embroidery is artwork. So I know we make shirts, we make quilts, we make home deck and pillows and curtains.
Yep.
But if you're gonna make a piece of art, I think a big part of art is the frame. So at that point, you could take the finished piece to a local framer, or you can order the frame online.
That's all we did.
At companies like pictureframes.com, you give them the measurement, you order it, comes in a week or two, and it's really inexpensive compared to the amount of time it takes us to do this. And then the end result is amazing.
And we show you how to do all of this in the tutorial, you'll find out. So if you don't want to take it to the framer, then you can just follow our step-by-step guide to do it this exact way.
And it will hang without the frame.
Absolutely.
But to me, it's like if you spend all that time, you might as well spend that last little bit.
Finish it.
And frame it. So Captain Steve's 3D Fish, feels strange saying that, is to me an amazing collection. There's been nobody that's come through our office or have seen these at events that hasn't been impressed with what embroidery could do. So when people say your hobby's embroidery and this is where I spend my weekends and my days doing stuff like this, let's make a piece of art that everybody's gonna say, wow, that's incredible. So again, 4 different fish. Each fish comes in 3 different sizes. We give you background options. You can use any quilt you might already have or any other quilt block to form these backgrounds. We give you about 5 or 6 different quilt blocks, some that look like waves, some that are straight. We just painted these. You can use blue fabric if you want. You can use any color fabric for any of the pieces. So it's a really versatile, amazing collection. And best of all, it's a special edition that comes with a full color book.
Absolutely.
So the instructions are simple. When you stitch your own fish, make sure you take pictures of it so we can post it on our social media sites so everybody can see what's possible with Captain Steve's 3D Fish.